Hey everyone. Today we're going to talk about 5 practices to nurture your relationship beyond Valentine's Day. Yes, yesterday it was Valentine's Day, our annual mandatory celebration of love. And I want to talk about this whole concept of Valentine's Day, the best, our worst, and our most surprising of the Valentine days that we have experienced. You know, the broader culture has no room for the reality that sometimes we can be in such a relationship rut that celebrating love, like weddings or showers or anniversaries or birthdays or Valentine's days, feels like a total contradiction in terms. And I remember one of these events, you know, every one of these events, because it instantly puts me in a kind of an evaluation of where is my life at and where is my relationship at. Does it deserve to be celebrated? Has it reached the right amount of positive evaluation? It comes down to very basic question like this one. Is there a cause for celebration other than the fact that I'm supposed to? Sure that many of you can relate to that question. When we're having an issue in our love life and the scales have tipped to the negative, these events, these mandatory holidays and celebrations fill me, and I think fill many of us, with feelings of shame or failure or loneliness or exclusion. Like I don't belong, like everybody else seems to be celebrating and having a great time. Look where I am at. Yeah. And in fact, I asked a few of you on social to tell me about your worst Valentine's Day because I think we need to kind of temper ourselves a little bit and get down to reality. And some of the descriptions were so poignant, I literally felt them on my skin. I walked in on my boyfriend cheating 2 days before, but it was too expensive to cancel the plans. So we went with it. Or the first Valentine's Day this year after I lost my husband. Or today, my husband and I both realized that after 22 years, it's over. Or the one right now, the one yesterday, heartbroken after a breakup a few weeks ago. My partner turned up completely drunk to a dinner at a fancy restaurant. This one, unfortunately, this Valentine, because people have been texting me about my singleness. When I fell down the stairs at the cinema and my date was too embarrassed to help me, and so 2 other men had to help me. One when everyone around me was enjoying the day, even among friends, and I had no one. So the sense of being isolated, separated from the rest of people. Today, because I've been dating a guy for 6 months and there was not a card and not a special text and nothing. That kind of speaks for itself. I took a sleeping pill to get through it, and I had a 12-hour night's sleep so that this person could wake up the next morning on the other side of this event. And I read this and I'm thinking about my own worst Valentine, which was quite a few years ago, but I remember it vividly. A few days earlier, I was practically hissing at my husband, don't even think about going out for Valentine. like, that's the last thing on my plan. We were going through a really rough period. We were running our therapy practices, raising 2 kids. I was traveling across the Atlantic to take care of my elderly parents. And we basically disagreed a lot on how to handle each of these Herculean responsibilities. And it's not like we were at war, but we were more at each other than with each other. That's for sure. And then suddenly, it was the second week in February, and my husband asks me, "What do you want to do for Valentine's Day?" It's the question that isn't really a question, because what I interpret there is I don't want to do anything for Valentine's Day. Do you? Because if you do, something's wrong with you, because don't you see the shambles that we are in? Let's just say we were not feeling very romantic and we were stuck in the trenches, and a détente for Valentine's Day seemed ludicrous. And it wouldn't have been different if it was our anniversary or if it was a birthday. I think that every one of these events that seem to magnify and ritualize the relationship can trigger this kind of reaction. Whereas in good years, celebrating any of these events Valentine's, anniversaries, birthdays, had been a welcome ritual for us. And now it felt like these events were kind of designed to shame us. Celebrating ourselves would have felt like a farce, and it was hard to see in that moment what would eventually come, that we would repair, that we'd figure it out, that we would laugh again, and basically that we would have fun for decades to come. But we had to really work hard to pull ourselves out of the pit. And any of you who are familiar with the variety of relationship plunges, I'm going to tell you what made the difference. And these are those 5 practices to nurture your relationship. So stay tuned, because I first want to do the housekeeping, and then we're going to go into these beautiful little gems of practices. Thanks for joining me to Letters from Esther Live, my monthly workshop series that helps you reflect and act and develop greater self confidence and relational intelligence in all your relationships. This series happens monthly on YouTube and on Facebook Live. If you want more Letters from Esther, just visit estherperel.com/blog. The blog is almost celebrating its 5th anniversary or birthday. So you've been with me, some of you, and others are joining for the first time. It is really the trove where a lot of the very concrete advice and help and suggestions for skills and tools for your relationships, and to basically make them as vibrant and colorful as they can be. So I invite you every month, join me here or on YouTube to discuss the letter life. So I write it, you read it, and then we come together right here and we discuss it. We interact around the ideas so that they can become even more palpable and actionable for you. But before we start, consider reaching out to anyone who you think could use this at this point. And you've been in touch with the people around you who could use this conversation for the next little while. Take notes, because we don't remember. Our attention spans are fractured, and it helps to then go back afterwards and read the things that were important to us in the moment. If you like what you learned today, just like it and subscribe to it. It's the best way for us to be connected on an ongoing basis. So, my question to you, who can relate? I want to know who's here. I read you some of the descriptions that the people sent, but all of you here today, have you ever had a situation like this, a Valentine's Day or anniversary or wedding for that matter, that turned into a real negative experience, or even a disaster sometimes, or just simply that it felt utterly not worthy to celebrate, or that you didn't feel worthy of celebration? Or was it yesterday? Tell me in the chat so I can really get a quick sense as to what are your experiences here. Okay, you're joining me from everywhere. Costa Rica, Canada. But I'm just going to see what you're writing. Always hated Valentine's Day, but the last few years, okay. Yes, keep going. Yesterday was okay. Yeah. Yes, this is more where you are from at this moment. So I'll wait. Okay, last few years they've been worse. Okay, yeah. Yeah. The question is what makes them worse, what makes them better, right? In the middle of one right now. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, okay. Okay. Yes, 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 yes. Yes. Hi, Karen, Myra, Valentina, May, Laura, Tinka. I see you all. I see you all. So, I want to start with a way of addressing the ruts that is not the typical first entry point. People often want to talk about communication and building intimacy and trust and all of that. I actually want to talk about the role of humor for a moment. People are always surprised to hear that a relationship therapist, like I am one, can have rough patches in their marriage. But seriously, if I hadn't, I don't think that I could be nearly as effective at my job. I mean, You don't become good in the work because you never have any of these issues. You become better in the work because you've had many of those issues, because you're like many other people, a regular mortal citizen. So my skills have certainly helped us get through the rough patch, but I really owe it to my husband's flirty sense of humor. I think that he's the one who really got us out, every time we were like sinking. Nothing thaws icy relationships like a masterful diffuser who can finally bring some much needed lightness. When I need a reminder as to why this occasionally or more than occasionally frustrating person is the great love of my life, I pull out a book proposal that he once gifted me, and I want to read it to you. So I get this proposal, and he says, I signed a deal. And the title of the book is Making Your Marriage Work, a guide for men with dynamic, attractive, passionate, and insanely demanding wives. And then I start to read. I say, oh, that's an interesting, it doesn't dawn on me right away who he's talking about, right? So, is it worth the work? Um, Peace and quiet versus dynamism in marital relations, throwing in the towel and then ducking when the towel comes back flying at you. Chapter 2, spelled or spoiled, searching the psychological lexicon for explanations for such madness, and more importantly, explanations for what kind of men would put up with such madness. Chapter 3, changing the frame from blame toward a relational view of inherently difficult relationships. The clash of the aliens, agendas from different worlds, genders, class, ethnicity, religion, nationality. Chapter 4, the martial arts of marital warfare, from below the belt to black belt strategies for positive change in relationships. So I read this, and of course, I crack up. It's like, wow, we can become a piece of art. We can become a book. We can become a source and a resource for others. And I couldn't remember what I was so upset about. I just thought, wow, anybody who can take the seriousness that sometimes sets in into the rut and kind of dilute it, basically, that is art. That is the art of humor as a diffuser in during conflict in relationships. And then I thought of the work of my friend and colleague Terry Real. We were just teaching together at Blue Spirit in Costa Rica, and on reflecting, I was reminded of a quote from him where he said, relationships are our biosphere. We're not above them, we're in them. You can choose to pollute your biosphere by having a temper tantrum over here, but you'll breathe in that pollution by your partner's withdrawal or resentment or lack of generosity over there. You and they are connected in an ecosystem. There's no better advice for those of us warring with a partner. And believe it or not, Terry's words also apply to Valentine's Day. It's not just a day in February when card companies and chocolatiers make their annual windfall. You take an ecological approach, and once a year holiday to prove your love becomes a big red reminder to nourish your biosphere. A big red reminder to nourish your biosphere. So, what I did was I started a proper self assessment. I think that that's really the place to start. So, I made a list of very noble behaviors, and I want you to ask yourself, have you been unkind, unfair, downright mean, indifferent, neglectful, nasty, passive aggressive, stingy, manipulative, critical, defensive, vindictive, holding on to a grudge? And is anyone here willing to admit to all of the above or any of the above? I write to you my own behaviors on occasion. Of course, that's not all of who I am, but that's how many of us are at times when we are in a particular situation, you know. So if you're fair with yourself, you can ask yourself the next set of questions, which I then wrote for myself too. Have I been as generous as I know that I can be? Have I been attentive? Or have I been talking like this, right? Have I been caring, loving? Have I taken initiatives about the things that I want rather than complaining that my partner isn't doing those very things? I could just as well do them, right? Have I been responsible? Have I been playful? Have I been curious? Have I been affectionate? Have I been desirous? And I hope you can answer yes to many of these prompts as well. So, when you reflect on this question, what do I need to do for the health of my ecosystem? So let me see a second. They've, Ali, totally so much expectation. Um, I was going through my divorce and it was terrible. So those are still the negative experiences. Diane, feeling not wanting and a little text in the evening. Happy Valentine. Long ago, ex had funky fire. I'm reading yours that my husband didn't even get me a card yesterday. Did you give a card to your partner? We often did we and we didn't get responded to is one experience, but we didn't and we tested our partner to see if they would. That's a separate story. And I think there may be different ones here, right? Um, okay, that's me, by the way, often. I need to be more playful. Yes, Michelle. Celine, I've been all above from time to time. Yes, I think, it's actually freeing to be honest and to say, when I am in a certain mode, I can do any of these things or my preferred three, because everyone has a style of how we live in conflict. But let me give you 5 practices to nurture your relationships any day of the year for that matter, right? Doesn't matter that V Day has passed. So, how do we surprise our partners with our thoughtfulness? Because it's easy to become lazy or complacent or complaining that the other person isn't putting in the effort, particularly when we have jobs and kids that are ever demanding. But I really do think that it's crucial to bring intentionality into our daily life with our partner. It's small, little things. It's a gaze that lingers a few seconds longer. It's a smile. It's good to see you. It's the nice to wake up with you. It's the I was thinking of you today and you sent something, a text that is not about something that needs to be done or bought. You know, all of these little moments that say you matter, you're important, you're special. That's it. You matter, you're important, you're special goes a long way. And it's small little things. It's not the routines. It's not just the habits. I make you coffee every morning. That's nice too. But there's little gestures that really convey I'm part of this relationship and I'm watering it so that we don't just live like a cactus. Invite your partner into a new ritual. Could be a nightly walk after dinner, a light candle, the lighting of a candle while you get the food ready, or while you go for bed, or a little, not just the making of the coffee in the morning, but sitting down for 10 minutes and just saying, what do you look forward to today? What's on your plan to do? What's on your menu? What's important for you today? What's one thing you'd like to feel today or to think about, or things that say you are a full human being and lots of things are happening rather than domestic materiality that is there. We're going to be doing that anyway. But it's often, by the way, the things that people ask kids when they have kids or friends, but not their partners. 2, so number 1 is the intentionality. New rituals. What's a little something we could do together that gives a symbolic meaning to our relationship? Number 2, communicate. Notes go a long way. Notes that are surprising, not notes because it's the Valentine's Day or because it's a birthday. It's the cards that you send when you don't need to. It's the little note that you put on the fridge, next to the toothbrush, on the pillow, that just says, I'm grateful for our life together, or thank you for being there, or something that acknowledges. It's the acknowledgement that says, I see you. You know, I was talking recently with a patient about how when somebody else makes us something that is delicious, we say, that is delicious. We make a statement that says, you cooked something that is really so good for me, that I enjoy so thoroughly. Well, why don't we say this beyond the concreteness of a dish? It's like, you are delicious. Not just what you cooked for me is delicious, right? Um, I enjoy touching you. I enjoy holding hands with you. It feels nice because you're not just saying, I like holding your hand. You're also saying to the other person, you are a source of joy and pleasure to me. That makes the other person feel seen. That's why these comments are so important, and especially in the physical realm. We often think that this is enough. No, this accompanied with, it's such a pleasure to stroke your hand, to hold it, to play with it. That makes the other person feel seen, not just our experience. Number three, collaborate with them. Set a goal together. You know, what's one thing that we could do every month, every 2 months that we want to bring back into our relationships, and offer your ideas. So write them down in advance. Don't just come empty handed to the table. Either reading a great book together, taking a class together, participating in a movie club together, but something that creates conversations that are beyond the everyday, so that you are attending something, because too often people go and attend something alone, and so they get the input but the relationship doesn't get the input. Number four, hold yourself accountable. By the way, all of these are in any order. And for some of us, the accountable needs to be number one. You know, agree to let go of something. I've been holding on to this grudge or to this fear or to this disappointment for too long, and I'm ready to let go of this for us. And be honest in the assessment of how you are participating in the stuck dynamic. It's so easy to see what the other person doesn't do constantly. It's much harder for us to see what is it that I do that makes it more likely for me not to get the very thing I'm asking for, because I'm basically setting myself up. So that awareness, the long list of behaviors, once we've written them for ourselves, it's another thing to go to our partner and say, listen, I think yesterday I was manipulative. I think I can get passive aggressive sometimes. I know I can be highly reactive. I know I sometimes don't listen with enough attention when you're talking to me. I know that I do this, and I know that that is something that is not good or that you don't like. Goes a long way. It's being responsible. You don't have to go into big blame, into big shame. It just says, I do stuff. We all do. And then don't just point the finger, look at the whole ecosystem. If a person is upset here, it may not just be because of what happened yesterday. It's a long chain of event. And then you can say, I realize that this is still polluting our system, that it's not resolved yet. Even though it's been 3 months, maybe we need to go back and revisit one more time. When we did this workshop together, Terry and I, midway through the session, we began screaming at each other all the things that couples say and do when they have big blowouts, and we were talking about 5 majorly defeating strategies, that for sure would land us nowhere. I'm going to list them because it's the opposite of them that are also part of those 5 practices. um, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. Instead of, let me hear what you have to say. It has nothing to do with if somebody is right or wrong. It's just there are different points of views and different experiences coexisting in a relationship, um, controlling your partner. I'm going to tell you what you're doing wrong. I know you better than you know yourself. Controlling, ventilating, big, massive. You always do this. This has always been the case from the first day I met you. Big piling up, kitchen sinking, ventilating, boundaryless, unbounded, maximizing. Yeah. Retaliation. Oh, I am going to make you feel exactly how much you hurt me. You will know how I feel because I'm going to make you feel exactly the same. You get the tone of it, right? And then withdrawing. I'm out of here. Talk, talk, talk. I have nothing to listen to, talk to my lawyer, as Terry said. But we've all been guilty sometimes of using any of these strategies, and they leave us feeling really entrenched in the fight. So, how do we switch it? Which one is the one? This is for each of us. Which is the one that I'm most likely to err on? What's my default networks, so to speak, right? My default position. And from there, which is the one that I want to make an effort to really turn around? So let me see a few more things that you've been telling me here. Retaliation is something I did a lot in my last relationship. Yeah, nobody like to be disrespected. Yes, Antoine. Yes, pleasure roots. I see. I'm always creating sacred spaces for imagined relationships that somehow never unfold. Yes, Rima, I read you. What would you recommend so my partner doesn't eat all the cookies while I'm watching this talk? Hi, Patrick. You can move with the talk to the cookies. Who said you have to be so far? I strive for all of these, Kristen. Small gestures. The husband will not kiss me anymore, not even a peck. It hurts beyond anything I would have expected. And do you know why? Are you able to talk about it? Is he holding something back? Is he afraid to say something he thinks would hurt you? What's the story underneath this? Susan, different points of views and experience in a relationship. Yes. Kitchen sinking. Yes. Ventilating is my default, Melina. Yes, Selena, sorry. Melanie, try keep in mind that there are other women willing to look good for my man, so make it a point to look attractive for myself. Yes. Withdrawal. So everybody can recognize some of these here. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's go to the questions. Let's talk together. Let me hear from you. What are the questions? Hope we can. How do we, Nike? How do we take responsibility while still communicating being hurt by someone when something significant other did or did not listen? There's time for everything. And often, if I say, I know what I did, or I take responsibility for this, or I'm well aware that, or I want to take ownership for this, or I realize that, I brought this and this and this into our relationship. Don't be afraid that because you are saying I'm responsible for A, that immediately makes your partner get away with the thing that they are also responsible for, or that it negates your being able to say, but there's certain things that you did to me as well. This is not an eye for an eye. I can only acknowledge something if I'm the same breath I'm also telling you what you did wrong to me, so that I don't ever stay in the space of responsibility. It's okay. It's okay. You won't forget the other things, and you're more likely that your partner then, on most often, will say, I realize what I did too. And if you have a partner who only expects apology from you all the time, ownership for you, but never takes responsibility for anything, you have bigger fish to fry. That is a personality issue on the other side that I think you really want to tackle, but not as part of an argument. It's okay to not to, for a moment, let go of your own grievance and just sit in your own agency. Yes. How to be nurturing and give praise when you're so frustrated at not having my own needs met, especially domestically and the family mental load. Always think, what is it that I can say that is likely to actually make the other person do more of what I want? Withholding praise because you're so pissed isn't going to get you more help. So if I do more of that praising, if I acknowledge, typically we want to say, I have to thank you because you took the laundry. Do you want me to make the list of everything I did, on one item? If that is going to get the partner to do three more things, why not? As Terry loves to call this, it's enlightened self-interest. Enlightened self-interest basically says, I'm going to say what is more likely for me to get more of what I want. rather than you don't deserve the praise. Of course, this is irrelevant. It's more pragmatic, actually, than just, authentic and caring. Not that it's not authentic, but the authenticity is I say the things that are more likely to bring out of my partner those things that make our relationship more robust, and putting the other person down or being in chronic resentment ain't going to do that. So that doesn't mean that you don't have validity to the feeling of resentment and that you're not frustrated and feeling overwhelmed and feeling that you do so much more. The question is, what's another way that is more likely, hopefully, to bring me more of the help that I so need and long for? And generally, complaining and criticizing doesn't enough accomplish that. I don't think I have ever seen somebody who said, works great for me. Yes, yes, Karen. Why am I a nag? For reminding my partner he said he'd do something, but instead, dude began a whole new project before finishing an important agreed project. Yeah, so he says you're a nag. Um, Look, it means you're on my back. You're constantly picking at me. You're only pointing at the things that I didn't do. And you are basically saying, we had an agreement and I feel neglected or invisible or uncared for, that you selfishly went ahead and did something that was important to you. So now the trick of this is, how do you say, I'm really hurt, I'm disappointed, without it saying, you did something wrong? Sometimes that's the good. Sometimes people do wrong things. But in this instance, it's like, you went ahead and did this thing, and I was really counting on you. Now, the question is always, is your partner able to hear you have a feeling? Or is your partner instantly going to pick up on the blame, even if there isn't any, because it's easier to fight back on blame than to actually deal with the sadness or the hurt that lives inside of you? And what was on your mind? That you wanted, I get that you wanted to do this other project, but I was counting on you. And I think one of the things I really love is when I can rely on you, and that when you come through, that feels so nice. And do you think we could have this here? Look, it's very difficult to change the tone when you're in the midst of the so you don't do it at that moment. You wait, and then you go back and you just say, I love it when I can count on you. There's something that gives me such a sense of a back behind me that I can lean on, and it's a great feeling. What about it happening here? Yes. How can we apply these principles over long distance relationships? You have to get through a rut when you're so far away from each other. It's much harder. Yes. But it doesn't prevent you from changing the conversation. Instead of, what did you do today? What did you do today? Or you didn't call me enough for this or that. Do for the other what you say you want. Now, it's a tricky thing, because sometimes we do for our partner that which we would want our partner to do for us, but it's not exactly what they would want. We call them 5 times a day because it's what we would want, but it's not what they need. So then the next thing is, I understand you like to have the 3 days off, to talk once a week, whatever. I need a little bit more frequency. How do we find a way for me not to overwhelm you, and for you not to act in such a way that I end up constantly feeling hungry and longing? It's kind of this is the art of relationship. This is not a thing that has a set solution. You practice it, you try it, you see which one works, we try a different one. It's about, how do two people somewhat stay true to what suits them, but at the same time do for the other, because it's what the other person needs. And a big chunk of a relationship is doing for the other just because it's them, basically, because because we want to do something that makes them feel good, not because we agree that that's what should be or that's what we should want. That's differentiation. I do for you because it's you. I don't really care about this and I don't really need it, but I do it because it's important to you. And that's the distinction. Often we get locked into wanting to convince our partner that the thing we want is important and should be important for them too. Not necessary. It's okay for each of us to do something for the other just because they asked, or because it's important to them, even though we couldn't care less. Yes. I think that's going to be our last one. Isn't loneliness considered an epidemic in the age of shortened distances, i.e., social media, dating? Look, I think what's important to understand is that loneliness, modern loneliness, is very different. It's not just about not being in the presence of other people, to not be in social situations. It's actually often a kind of result of the hyperconnectivity in which we are not really connecting, in which we often are experiencing a lack of belonging, a lack of authenticity, a lack of reciprocity, a lack of depth, a lack of reality in the exchanges. And that creates a certain kind of loneliness. It's loneliness when I sit next to somebody who is on the phone while I talk to them, and they are there, but they are not present. They're kind of listening, but not really. They're kind of there, but they're not. And I'm kind of there, but I'm not for them. That, all these features of modern loneliness are part of the ecosystem in which social media exists. It's not only social media, it's also any device we just simply have on our laptop that is mediating our connection and our relationships with others. So, 5 practices. Remember them: accountability, humor, rituals, um, let me go back a second. Collaboration, setting goals together, and ownership, responsibility. They're very different than tips. They're actually really a change of your position in the relationship, a change in belief and in behavior and in relatedness. Thanks so much, everybody. And I'll see you next month. Bye bye.